This is a vision from June 29th that I got after having some Bible or time in the Bible with Soon during prayer. I'll do my absolute best to describe it. I first saw a tiger, and the tiger was walking sort of in front of me so I could see the side of him. And you can see that he was split down the middle, partially an orange colored striped tiger and partially a white colored striped tiger. And as the tiger walked along, it began to pick up its pace and was walking maybe a little bit faster or running. And he started to try to pull away from the side that was orange striped. And it was like almost like a sticky substance. As he tried to pull away, you could see that it pulled away like something sticky. And he pulled away, and then he stopped walking to try to pull even harder and harder. And he would stop and like lick his fur. And he finally was able to pull completely away from the orange striped tiger and become loose from it completely. And then he sort of shook off his fur and began to clean himself, and just like a cat would, cleaning its paws and sitting and just grooming itself. In the next part of the vision, I saw a old-fashioned TV set with the knobs on the side and had the V on the top, the antenna. And the TV was had black and white, like pepper, you know what I mean? Black and white, salt and pepper screen, to where there was nothing on the TV screen. It was just black and white. And as the tiger that I saw originally became free of this orange striped part of itself, it began to run, and it started to come towards me almost, the person seeing the vision coming towards me almost to where its face was up against mine. And then I saw again the TV screen, and this tiger came through the TV screen. And as it came through the TV screen, its stripes, its fur actually changed. And it was still black and white striped, but its fur changed to be really like, almost like if an animal shook out its fur, and it was full and they were puffed out. And it was just black and white striped, puffed out. Just a weird, well, to me anyway, different looking than it had looked before. And the TV was set up on some sort of entertainment center, or it looked like maybe a dresser or a side table. It just was very old-fashioned. Anyway, and the tiger came and put itself there in front of the TV on this dresser. The next thing that I saw was a few more animals came out. The second animal was a goose. And the goose was the black one with like the brown feathers. Not like a white goose, but like a black goose that fly with like in the V and all that. I think they're geese. Anyway, he came out, and then after that a pig came out. The next thing that I saw that was happening was a wind began to blow, and I could see the ducks, or the goose, his feathers, I could see them begin to sort of, from the wind, be moved around. And as the wind blew harder, the feathers of the duck began to fall away, and underneath this goose was gold, a golden goose. And the feathers all went away, and this goose was golden, and it was no longer real breathing goose. It was just a golden goose. And then next, the pig, when the wind came, the wind itself didn't disturb its outer skin. It had to be cut away. And what I noticed was used to cut away was this. It was an old-fashioned knife that you used at a barber shop that you would use to shave someone, almost like a switchblade type of knife. It opens up and then you shave with. So the razor, or whatever it is, began to shave away at this pig's skin, and underneath that was white. So the pig's skin was pure as white. And after the pig's skin turned white, then a cold wind blew on this pig, and it was snow, and the snow blew over this pig, and the pig actually turned to ice. And then the pig was no longer real and was now ice. After these things took place, the animals were sort of moved back towards the TV screen, and a really, really large lion came. And it sort of sat on the outside of this dresser, and it began to dig away at the dresser. So it started to carve into this dresser, which was to me, it was a rectangular shape. And it started to carve out, what it looks like when wood is being carved. It's very, it's misshapen a little bit, and you carve and you can hollow it out. That's what it was. It was hollowing out this desk into this perfect rectangle that was about, I'd say, 2 inches. And once the lion was done carving out this wood, this rectangle was perfectly shaped and carved out, and then it was like smooth as velvet. It reminded me of velvet. And the lion put its paws in the 4 corners of this dresser, and it stood over, and you could see that its body cast a shadow. And as the shadow was cast into this rectangular shape, you could see again the tiger come. And the tiger came down into the shadow underneath the lion, and he was sort of crouching down a little bit, but he was looking up at the belly of the lion. And he had a look on his face that he was very almost hungry. Like he reminded me of a dog waiting for a treat, just waiting, with his mouth open, just hungry, waiting and excited for food. And so I saw the tiger looking up to the belly of the lion. So I myself looked up to the belly of the lion. Then I saw what looked like a beaded string of pearls, but it wasn't pearls. It was a metal of some sort. And the tiger began to swallow this string of pearls. And then the next thing that I noticed was that I could see inside of the tiger, and inside the tiger was a snake. And this snake filled every single organ and every single curve of the intestines or whatever. It just fit itself perfectly in these places, and it bulged itself out so that it was almost stuck inside of this thing. You could see it moving into place, but once it was in place, it held itself firmly in its place so that it couldn't be moved. And it was just very, very bloated and swollen, inflamed, sort of. It inflamed itself into this place. And then I could see, I actually then saw, I looked up from where this tiger was to see up into this place, into the belly of the lion, that this string of beads or pearls or whatever they were, these metal circles, came from. And this part might be difficult to describe, but as I looked up, I could see inside of a body, and it was red, and I could see these clear tube things going up all over the inside of this lion's belly, where it was just all these tubes, and inside these tubes were these blue, navy blue circular objects that I believe what ended up being these metal beads, but I'm not sure they were supposed to be. But anyway, so they're floating up these tubes, up, and I could see them there was billions and billions of these circular objects, and they were floating through these clear tubes. And so I found myself inside of the belly and looking downward now so that I can see what was going on. And I could see the opening where the beads had gone through, into that string of pearls. And I could see that there was a clear liquid, like a clear water, before they dropped down. And the water was very, very crystal clear water. And as they came through, I could see now on the other side that they were no longer separated beads. They came through and they were on that string, and they had turned the color of metal. The next thing that I noticed was what the snake looked like. And the only way to describe it was I saw the tiger's mouth open, and then I can see the snake's mouth open inside of this tiger receiving these metal beads, or the string of beads. And the only way I can say it is that I got to see like up close in its mouth, and it was just a foul, disgusting place. It was like filled with worms, all kinds of different worms. It was just gruesome and disgusting, and I can't even describe it. I asked the Lord repeatedly to not see it anymore. I was like, okay, I get it, I'm done. But I was very clearly shown how foul and disgusting it was, and how awful it was, and how I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to see it anymore. I wanted nothing to do with it, but I saw it for quite some time, and it was very, very awful to see. At this point, I began to speak to the Lord about this snake who didn't belong there, obviously, and I felt like it should come out. And I sort of was like, okay, Lord, how do you get this snake out? Can you pull it? And I saw myself or someone pulling on this snake, and it wouldn't budge. Like, there was no pulling this thing out. It was not coming out. It was stuck. And I just felt like if you pulled on it, you would be covered in the things that it was covered in. It was just gross. And I just realized then and there, you cannot pull this thing out. And so I asked the Lord, how do you get it out? How do you get rid of this creature? How do you get it out? And he said, you starve it. You cannot feed it. And he showed me what it looked like when it was starved and not fed, and it sort of shriveled up into like nothing, almost like it was old and dead and crusty, and it fell out. The whole string of the thing just fell out into like, after a stick is burned, how it's just soot and like, just nothing, basically. It just broke up into nothing. And then as soon as that happened, you could see the tiger changing, and the tiger started to change from the tip of its nose. And you can see that it was a burning away of this tiger. Oh, I did forget to mention, I did ask the Lord what would happen if that snake was not inside of that tiger, what it would look like. And he showed me prior that it would be a lion, and he showed me it in its beauty and just bright colored. And he showed me like the wind blowing on him, like a hot fire wind blowing on him, and he could withstand it, and he could stand with it, and it just made him shine brighter, this wind. So I did see that before I asked the question about how you get rid of the snake. I asked the question, what would happen if the snake wasn't there? And then I asked, how do you get rid of this snake? Anyways, and then like I said, it began to burn away at the tip of his nose, and you can just see a slow burn, and not a raging fire, but just a slow, tiny burning away of this creature until it was a little bit charcoal colored, until the tip of its tail, and then it would just shake it off, and it became this lion, and it became this mane, and it had, its smooth skin, and then it had the tail, but you could see that it was no longer its original form of a lion, that it was almost in spirit, so to speak. It was, I wanted to touch it, and I could see that it felt, or I even felt that it felt silky and smooth, and the feeling was just very amazing feeling. And it was almost not like a whole being, like it swayed a little bit. It seemed to be, like I said, not a whole being, like sort of spirit, where it wasn't solid, if that makes any sense. And then once this took place, you could see the lion, and it was magnificent, and you could see, that the wind had blown just like I saw before, and it was lighting up his mane, and you could see that he was looking out. He was actually out in the galaxy, or out in the atmosphere, and it was like, the darkness with the stars, and he was looking into a galaxy, and he could see planets and the sun, and he could just see all these things. And this larger lion that originally was hovering over him came with him. I believe this was the same lion, obviously, but came and sat next to him, and they sat with each other, and they looked out on this galaxy, and then they began to walk toward this galaxy. And as they walked toward this galaxy together, you could see that there were just hundreds and thousands of lions behind them that were going with them as well. And after I saw all this, I just began to think about this vision, and I began to think about the snake, and I asked the Lord, I said to the Lord, you said the way to take it out was to starve it and not to feed it any longer. But I thought, Lord, what were we feeding it in the first place? And then the Lord showed me back to when the snake was in the mouth of the tiger. He showed me the tiger's mouth open and the snake's mouth in there ready to feed. And he showed me a girl walking up to the snake with a Bible in her hands. And she reached out and grabbed a page and ripped it off and threw it into his mouth. So she just began to rip pages out of the Word of God and throw it into the snake's mouth and do it and do it and do it. And then she stopped and was not willing to do that anymore. And she closed the Bible and she had her arms wrapped around it and she backed away and just was like, no. And the snake was hungry for it. He's so hungry for it that he tried to lunge forward a little bit to get to it. But he was so, stuck into that place that he put himself in that he couldn't reach out and grab it. So he couldn't feed off of it anymore because he couldn't reach it himself. And then if he couldn't feed, he couldn't survive. And he began to dry up and die. And that was the end of the vision.